Chapter 45. Gluten intolerance, also called celiac disease, and genetics. This is specific training for the gluten sensor, and this is also known as wheat intolerance, wheat protein intolerance. And now let me explain the concept. Gluten is a protein that is common in wheat, also many types of grain, any kind of cereal. And it's actually, the disease is caused by an incorrect programming of the immune system. The immune system thinks gluten is a bacterial infection and it tries to fight it. So if you eat it, the intestine thinks, oh, we're being attacked, and then it starts with inflammation, fighting against it. That causes digestive problems. It can also cause lactose intolerance because the intestine might be damaged so much that it cannot digest lactose, milk protein anymore. It can increase your risk ninefold of developing ear, nose or throat tumors, cancers, or 80 times higher risk of lymphatic tumor risk. And on average it takes a person 11 years to get the right diagnosis. So 11 years from the first problems, first digestive problems, and they are usually persistent, all the way until you get the right diagnosis. And that's a big problem because 12% of untreated cases are fatal. So people have these problems, they try to find out what the source of the problems are. It takes them 11 years, and many people die because of the follow-up diseases, because they could not get the right diagnosis, because a gluten-free diet would help to be completely free of symptoms. So it's very important to identify these people, either the ones that already have the problems but they don't have the right diagnosis, or people that don't have the disease yet or the problems yet, so that they are made aware that they are of a high risk population, and as soon as the first symptoms arise, they can go to the doctor and get the right diagnosis. And that's the aim of this test. As I said, gluten-free diet, complete freedom from symptoms, and normalization of these tumor risks, these cancer risks. And here is how it works. This here is the inside of an APC cell, antigen presenting cell, they're called. This is the inside of the cell, and that's the nucleus, that's where the genes sit. And the normal process of what these cells do is like this. They find bacteria, they absorb it, and then they cut it up into smaller pieces. And these bacterial pieces are then recognized by two genes that produce two proteins, and they're DQA1 and DQB1. And these genes are instructions for these structures here. And they are both parts of a receptor. And a receptor basically is like this. They take part of the bacteria, grab onto it, and then present it to the surface. So part of the bacteria that the cell has recognized is now, the bacteria has been neutralized, and it is now presented to the rest of the body. And then certain cells called T cells, they grab onto it, they recognize, ooh, there are bacteria in here, and this is what they look like, and then they start inflammation and fighting against these cells. So this is how our immune system works. We recognize there's a pathogen, an invader, we piece it up into pieces, and then we show the rest of the immune system there is an invasion, and this is what you should look for, this is what they look like. That's the normal process. Now gluten, wheat protein, is when it would be absorbed and the protein is broken up into smaller pieces. It usually does not fit into this receptor, so it would not present to the surface, and it would not cause an immune response. So the T cells don't recognize anything and they say everything is okay. This is what is happening in a majority of people. So they can eat gluten and they don't activate the immune system. However, there are genetic variations that produce modified versions of these genes. So the receptor is built in a slightly different way, and this is what happens. This receptor is suddenly able to present gluten to the surface. And now, just as if this was a bacteria, the T cells are activated and they then cause alarm. And this means that suddenly the wheat protein, which is completely harmless for us, is recognized as a bacteria, and whenever wheat protein is eaten, the immune system knows about it and starts fighting it. It inflames the intestine and causes all of these problems. So what can we find out from a genetic analysis in this case? If it's negative, it means you don't have the receptors able to present the gluten protein. That's why the probability of gluten intolerance or celiac disease is very close to 0%. 99% of all cases, or even more, have these specific receptors that are able to present gluten. However, that does not necessarily mean you will definitely be gluten intolerant. The risk is somewhere up to 40% of developing the disease. So this is what we call a very strong negative predictive value. So if it's negative, you usually don't have to worry about gluten intolerance. If you have digestive problems, it's very, very likely a different reason. If it's positive, it means it's not sure that you're going to get this disease. However, look out for it, because usually it takes people 11 years to get the right diagnosis. And you now know about it. First symptoms, you can talk to your doctor, and then you can get the right treatment by avoiding a gluten-containing diet. And then you get complete freedom from symptoms. So early detection is one part. Pay attention to the symptoms and save yourself the 11 years of problems without knowing what the cause is. Then you do a dietary adjustment, avoid gluten-containing food. The nutrition sensor, where we have a list of different food types, will help you. It will show you a warning sign in anything that contains gluten, which will help you to avoid food that might contain gluten. And that's the end of chapter 45, Gluten Intolerance and Genetics, as specific training for the gluten sensor for celiac disease.